We are Keanvenient Truth. Yeah, it's almost Christmas. It's almost the holidays. It's almost like the holiday of the year, besides Thanksgiving.
The holiday of the year. Yeah.
Like the main, like Christmas is big, It's Christmas. And then New Year's. It's like those are two big ones back to back.
I don't know what I just did here. Yes, the main holidays, as always. What else is there? I mean, unless you're not Catholic, I guess, which we're not
Hanukkah.
either. I mean, yeah, there's
Hanukkah's
probably
a big
other.
one. Hanukkah's huge. What else?
There's all kinds of different
Holidays that are
holidays
big.
that we don't even know about that are
Kwanzaa.
huge.
Big.
Yeah.
What other ones besides that?
I don't know. What is this, a game show?
I don't know. It's just like, listen, it's because you can't figure something out.
Well, this thing's just
and
started
you're getting
doing.
irritated right now because you're all like, we have to figure this out.
I'm trying to go on Twitter Spaces and it's playing fucking music for some goddamn reason.
So this is why. So I just want to let people know that I actually stepped out to take our dog to the groomers, which altogether is about, I don't know, 20 minutes. I get home and this guy is just like upstairs in the living room, just doing some other stuff on the laptop, knowing damn well we had a podcast to do. He could have easily been downstairs figuring all this out. Then we get on the podcast, he doesn't have it figured out, and then he gets sidetracked because now you can't pay attention to what's happening.
I have other things going on too,
Everyone does.
Well, listen. We were just talking about this during the podcast. Yes, I will say, all right, thank God you do the podcast with me. But like, yeah, we could sit in a room and just record something and then throw it in the garbage right after. Or there's the other behind the scenes part of it of recording and setting up all the fucking shit on here and everything. And that's what I do, right? So that's got to be done,
Yeah,
and it's got to be done
great.
properly.
No. I understand that it has to be done.
And I have other things going on as well, just like you.
Everyone understands it has to be done. But when you tell me that you want to do a podcast and you know I stepped out for 20 minutes and you know it takes you forever to get this all situated, you could have easily been downstairs. That's all you have to say is, you know what, Leah?
No, I couldn't have. No, I couldn't have.
Why?
I took a shower. I had to take a shower.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. I had to take a shower.
No, you didn't. You could have easily waited. It's not like you were drenched in I don't know, some paint or something all over the place. I don't know why you can't ever just admit when something's really you struggle with that.
I don't.
You're still. What are you trying to do right now? You're still trying to do this?
Don't worry what I'm doing.
Yeah, but this is sidetracking me, and I'm trying to be present.
Listen, that's not my fault that it's distracting you.
It is.
I'm like three people here. I'm like three people. I'm at least two people on here. I'm the person behind the scenes. I'm also here talking with you.
But you're not, though. You can't. You got to be present. If you're going to bring it to the podcast, you got to be present.
Well, I don't know. This is our 57th episode, and I've been doing this every fucking time. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay, guy. Can't just say, you know what, you're right. I really do need to be more present for the podcast.
It's always like the first minute. How about this? Moving forward, whenever we first start and say, hey, it's Joe and Aaliyah, that first minute, 2 minutes maybe, just fucking talk about some shit. And know that I'm doing some other shit.
No, you know what? How about this? Don't tell me to come do a podcast. Don't say that you want to do the podcast. Don't say anything like that until all of this is literally handled.
Well, sometimes
and
things
then
happen.
I will make an appearance.
Sometimes things happen when you hit record and start moving. So then what? We just sit back and let Billy Bob freaking handle it? No, somebody has to do it.
All right.
You want to do it?
Whatever. You're never going to admit when something's you just struggle with that.
You know what I will admit, though, is I think I swear too much.
What does that have to do with what I was talking about?
Nothing at all. I just think I think I swear too much on here, and I'm going to try and curb it. Only because I think I swear, but I'm like, whenever I'm talking about something, I'm very passionate about it. Swears come out because I'm like, wow, this fucking fuck. right? But then I thought about it, trying to like promote this podcast and whatnot, like some of these platforms, they don't they don't allow swears.
What
And
platforms don't allow swears? And I
no,
don't.
in the marketing part of it, in the promotion part. Like, have you ever seen an ad with swears in it
Oh, well,
on
no. I
social
mean,
media?
that's why you get a clip or ad where there's no swears.
Yeah, it's tough when you're swearing all the fucking time. So that's my problem. I'm working on it.
Okay.
But that's really the only reason. I mean, I guess if you swear a lot too, you might sound a little, I don't know. Maybe it scares people off a little from listening. Maybe some people.
Some people, I guess. I mean, there's a time and a place, you know?
Well, my time and place is the podcast, so it's every time.
Your time and place is all the time. It's not just the podcast.
Yeah.
It's in the house, upstairs, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in front of our kid, da 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 da, everywhere.
Well, that's what it is.
Got nothing to say about that. So going into the holidays, getting ready for that. We're leaving, right? We're getting out of Dodge. Gonna do some big family stuff, which we haven't done. I don't know who's really been able to like all get together since COVID, but my family, on my dad's side of the family, we had like a really huge family. And every year for Christmas, it's like a big to do, like the Christmas rent out a space, everyone's coming, friends of the family, Santa Claus shows up, the Christmas tree's there, kids are opening gifts, there's food everywhere, drinks everywhere. It's literally what we look forward to. And we haven't had this since COVID. So this year is our first year back. Doing our big family holiday party, and I am psyched.
Yeah, I've only been to one, and I was like excited about it. Although I have to say, I am a little bummed about like, because normally it's like all the titis and whatnot. They cook a dish, and everybody brings all the stuff in. Am I correct? Like a Puerto Rican
So it was
Christmas.
like that for a long time, and everyone would bring something. But I think honestly, it's just like the older we get, and just the more crazy it gets, and the more kids that, and more like shit gets so crazy that, and now it's like, look, put some extra money in everyone, and now let's just get it catered. But there is going
That's
to
a lot.
be Puerto Rican food.
All right, as long as it's gonna be Puerto Rican food, because
Yeah,
I heard
man.
that we're getting
No,
it
it's a
catered by an
mixture.
Italian place.
It's Italian and Puerto Rican food, separate. Italian,
You
Puerto
can't have
Rican.
Puerto Rican Christmas catered by an Italian place. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Funny enough is that whenever though we had my aunts and stuff bring dishes, there was always like stuffed shells or like with like
Oh,
cut. Always like someone was always making that. Like
yeah.
Puerto Ricans and Italians.
Well, if any of your family's listening, I am souped for Puerto Rican food,
I'm
like that
psyched.
authentic.
I'm psyched. I'm psyched.
What are some of the dishes like?
Pasteles. I'm psyched for
The
that.
pizza pasteles. That's the one that we had. Your dad brought them in.
Yeah, they're frozen. You have to boil
Yeah,
them.
I was like, okay, that's cool.
Those
Maybe
are my jam.
uh,
That's because you're not Puerto Rican.
yeah, I'm like more like, I don't know, like was it like the pulled chicken or something?
Oh yeah, the oh, God, mom makes it, but they also have it.
Yeah, with like the rice and beans.
Yeah, arroz con gandule, and then you have like we'll have some like damn, why am I blocking out? It's like the chicken with potatoes and this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it kind of pollo guisado? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not so good at pronouncing certain things.
Yeah, we need some of that stuff.
And tons of other things. So I'm psyched about that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And
And we're gonna be in New York. We haven't been in New York since we moved out here. Really, of like staying there.
yeah, we haven't been. You and I haven't been there since before our daughter was born.
Right.
Like really hung out there.
I know. So our daughter's gonna
Been there a
see,
couple
and
times,
I'm
but-
so excited. So that's fun. Today we were on a horse and carriage ride
Where was that?
in Should I say where?
Well, no, the name of the place.
Liberty Farms.
Oh, all right. I don't know what it is, but
Can't tell you. So, yeah, man. I mean, I feel like something really big happened this past week. Something really huge happened. And I feel like I have to talk about it, not just because I feel obligated or like I'm a clinician, but I feel like I have to talk about it because it was actually a big deal and it was actually kind of even a shock to me. Um, but for those of you who haven't heard, there was Stephen Twitch, Stephen Boss actually is his name. He's known as Twitch. He committed suicide this past week, um, and he passed. And so that was a really big thing going on, as it always is whenever we hear something like that. But I think that no matter how much I hear about this stuff, because unfortunately I hear about it a lot, it still shocks me. It's like it's never something that I hear. That's probably the one thing that I hear in my job, like especially that I constantly am like, like it's just so like it's just awful. And especially if anyone knows who he was just from like seeing him around, like um I first saw him on So You Think You Can Dance, which I loved that show. And I think he was on the first season, I think. And he met his wife, actually, Allison, on that same show. I guess they met there. And they have like three beautiful kids, or four maybe. I think there's a baby, but the beautiful family, and they're always putting out these like wonderful dancing videos. He was also, I think, the co-executive producer on the Ellen DeGeneres show, as well as the DJ for the Ellen DeGeneres show. So he was also doing that. But apparently, from what everyone's been writing about him, he was like this huge light, just extremely like likable, friendly, caring, loving, like nothing like negative anyone's ever had to say about this man. And it sounds like everybody was in shock. And when I think about the people in my life who are close to me who also committed suicide, it's the same type of thing. Like when one of our best friends committed suicide, Elsie, that was like huge for all of us. No one, I mean, like, yeah, we knew that there was like stuff going on, but like no one would ever think from the outside because she was always so like bubbly and great and this and that and like just like a light, just a huge energy from her all the time. So when she committed suicide that day, it was just really like just hit you in the face even more because it leaves you with this confusion of like, wait, what? Like, like you seem so this and so that, so happy. And that's the scary thing about mental health is that you don't have to see it, like you don't have to, it can look like someone is happy, enjoying their life with their kids or whatever and having a great time. And then I think what kills me to think about is knowing that when people are presenting in the world as that, that means that like God knows how long of his life, right? Or of, let's say, my best friend Elsie, one of my best friends Elsie's life, or anybody else's life, how long they were living underneath that mask, literally dying, like dying, like internally miserable, and just, oh my God, like it breaks my heart to think that anybody ever lives like that. Like it really does. It actually kind of brings tears to my eyes. So,
because that could be anybody.
yeah, it could be anybody. It's so sad. It really is. So it like really like I've been thinking about it ever since then. I mean, again, I hear about this stuff all the time, but like every time I hear about it, it's like it like stays with me in my mind for a minute because like it's just I think about that piece. I think about the piece of like how excruciating it must have been for that person and how tired that person must have been just living. Which means that they weren't even really living. They were just existing then.
Did you know that this guy left a note?
He left yes, I
So,
heard that he left I don't want to read it.
Oh, no, I was just wondering. I mean, if he's writing a note, then it's kind of telling
Oh,
the
okay. I thought they
details
like
of.
posted that. That would be awful.
Well, why? What if it's like maybe?
I don't
Right?
know. I just feel like that's private stuff, you know?
Oh,
Like I
my
feel like
glasses
the
are on.
world shouldn't know that, you know?
Well,
Or
it's
or like they don't
possibly
need to know that.
it's explaining everything that you're questioning.
Well, from
Possibly, it
the
could.
nutshell version of what they said, they had mentioned that right that there was a note that was found, and the note was basically talking about challenges that he's had in his life, and that's basically what he was, running from. So they did say that. I don't need to know what like I don't think anyone really needs to know what the challenges are, like except for maybe his family, and even then it's, like he was going through something, period. He was going through something very, very, very deep that many people will never understand, you know? That's all I need to know.
So I mean, like with your friend, did you didn't see any signs whatsoever?
No, so we were really, really young too. Like when she committed suicide in 2006. I could be wrong. I have to ask. Catherine is way better at remembering that. I was in Orlando at the time, so I drove back quickly once I got the phone call. But yeah, this was in West Palm Beach, and yeah, Elsie was amazing. She was just like, again, we were like in our young 20s, so we were in like party mode a lot, you know. So, and we were also self-absorbed, like we were
Hmm.
drinking a lot, so self-absorbed. So it's hard to really go back and be like, oh, like maybe there was a time, because we were all just like,
Even in hindsight, like looking back, you can't
even in
see any red
hindsight,
flags
no.
or anything.
No one can tell you that. In hindsight, I see there's no red flags. In hindsight, I
Hmm.
see
Interesting.
someone who is like constantly just like ready to like party and go have a good time, and like life of the party and energy and hysterical, and like that's all anybody saw.
Hmm.
Like, so now when I think about it now, if I think about maybe like, and not going based on what I saw, but just now what I know clinically, I guess maybe the fact, if I could look back to like, now again, I don't know how much, she was drinking, like outside of like all of us partying and stuff, like I don't know like what else she was doing like in her own personal life or whatever, but I guess when I looking at it from a clinical standpoint, could that have been also a sign, obviously, right? Of someone who's just kind of like, living their life or existing in life, just hiding or running from pain through drugs and alcohol,
Hmm.
and that happens unfortunately also a lot, until you just can't run anymore.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I really just wanted to talk about that and kind of get into even some just some sites and some just resources for people,
Hmm.
just in case you don't know where to reach out, who to reach out to, anything like that. Man, if anyone is ever feeling like just stuck or depressed, sad, whatever it may be, I mean, tons of things. You could reach out to the NAMI Association and kind of look for groups, or look for online resources more with them. NAMI is the National Association of Mental Illness, and they have one in just about every, I mean, it's around the world, like it's around I know the United States for sure. So you can find that anywhere. Also SAMHSA, SAMHSA, which is Substance Abuse and Mental Health Alliance, something like that. But they're also another good resource to log into and try and see what else is going on, like in your area or other things that you can utilize. Also, if you want to find like a therapist and really get into that, I mean, go to psychologytoday.com, right? You can find clinicians in your area. Also, another site to use is zencare.org, I think.
How's that going, by the way?
I haven't really started yet. I just like did my profile, but haven't posted my
Hmm.
stuff yet. But zencare.org seems to be a pretty great site that I am newly like entering, in terms of finding a clinician in your area as well. Yeah. So also, if you have any support systems. And what I mean by support systems, you guys, is like, and anything is a support system. Like if you have a friend at work and someone who you feel like you can at least talk to, like that's a support system, like parents, if you have that, any, anything, like anyone, any person who you can speak to about anything. Some people feel like they don't have that. And if that's the case, then reach out to these resources that I had just mentioned. There's also hotlines. So if you go on to the National Association of Mental Illness, they will also give you the hotline in your area that you can call as well. So there's stuff out there. It's just a matter of people reaching out. One of the things I think the greatest population that has the highest rate of suicide is men over the age of 45, I believe, and that came from the SAMHSA website that I got. So, and that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me for lots of reasons. One of them really being that I think that in society, there's this like traditional, view of men, of what men, I guess, can't or shouldn't do, or what it's not okay for men to do. I think a lot of times that belief is that men don't share feelings, men don't do this,
But do you
men
think
don't
that
do
that was
that.
his thing? I mean, he was a dancer, right? I mean,
hmm
that's a pretty like that.
I'm not talking about him specifically.
Uh,
I'm talking about in general, the highest rate of suicide is men over the age of 45.
well, there's a lot of responsibilities. Yeah,
What
there's a lot of, yeah.
that goes back to the traditional stereotype of what it is to be a man. What it
Yeah.
is to be a man, if we look back in like, I guess like what the 60s, even the 50s, right?
Well, I
Men
wouldn't
did
even say
what?
stereo. I mean, I
It
guess
is a
it is
stereotype,
stereotypical, but it's also true. Like,
but it doesn't have to be true. It's only
okay,
true because of societal norms and what has
all
been
right.
put out
Well,
there,
let
but
me
it doesn't
paint
have
let
to
me
be
paint a
true.
picture, right? You're I don't know. You're a guy, right? And you're 35. You have a kid.
45 and older,
Okay.
45 and older. Well, that's the
Oh,
highest rate, but
45 and older. Oh, he was only 40, but okay. But
yes, but he was also black, and I will
mm,
talk on that in a second
all
because I
right.
think that culture is also a big piece of this.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, you have a kid. You're married only for a few years, right? You got bills. You got maybe you make more than your wife, which I think is still kind of common for some reason. Whatever. I
For
mean,
some reason, because that's the
yeah.
world.
Well, I mean, it's not because
Like,
it's not because companies.
men get paid more
I
than
don't think it's
women in
because
most.
companies just like don't want to pay women. I think that's a ridiculous thought. I think so. For the most part. I'm sure there is a couple companies out there that fucking don't.
I'm pretty
But
sure
the
that's happening. But go ahead.
yes, but for the most part, I mean, at least if I'm a owner of a company and you have the same skills as some guy does, I'm paying you and I'm hiring you.
You would think so, but then I hear all these celebrities, let's say, come out about, let's say, like, about what their pay was from a huge blockbuster, Golden Globe winning movie, and come to find out, meanwhile, they're in the front role, like they hold the movie down just like the man. And why is it that
But I'm sure there's plenty of cases where a guy who thought he had like this great role or whatever didn't get paid what he should have gotten paid too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Where
not
are those
saying I'm
cases?
not saying I'm
Nobody
not
talks about
saying
that.
that there aren't. Let's not go into like a loop with this. I want to focus on like what we're talking about. I'm sure that there are cases like that. I'm just saying the majority is
All right.
probably falls on the other side.
Anyways, I'm trying to paint the picture of like it's still like back in the day. Okay, the man would go to work and the wife would stay home and with the kids. People still do that now.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people still do that. You know, I don't know if it's because of culture or passed down traditions or
It is.
whatever.
It's passed down.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Generation.
right. Which at on this day and time, you would think that the suicide rate would be higher for women actually because like there's all these opportunities and they're at home, you know, working with the kids, doing what their mother did or their grandmother did, and maybe they have ambitions and goals and dreams and that they want to pursue, but they're not doing it. Anyways, but people still do that dynamic, right? And then if they are still doing that dynamic, and the guy does have kids and he is married, and then he's got the house, he's got the cars, he's paying for all the cars, he's
Yeah,
paying for both
there's an extra layer of
there's all this,
responsibility. I know that.
and I can see
On top of the fact, so think about that. There's all this extra layer of responsibility, right? Plus the fact that
you're not
I'm a
allowed to
man
talk about that
and I'm
shit.
not allowed
We
to
have to
talk
like
about
football
it, quote,
and whatever.
unquote.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So,
Then plus the fact that I'm, let's say, either black and I'm targeting cultures that I know that it's not really so common for them to walk into. Black men, not a common thing. Okay. Asian culture, it's rare.
Lack of like communication skills.
To go into a therapist's office, and talk about what's going on in your life. I mean, that shit, even out here, just culturally, like it's rare that I get men. When I will say though, just from being in the field, I've seen an increase in men in general coming into therapy, which I think is fabulous, especially when I see like different cultures, because I know that pertaining to that specific culture, it's not something that you do. So when I see black men or like Asian culture, even like Italian, because the Sicilian Italian culture also does not, Irish Catholic, forget about it.
I mean, men need it the most for the most part, like they're.
What do you mean men need it the most?
Men need therapy. Like
everyone needs therapy.
Right. But guys in that particular dynamic of
With
their
all that
family
shit
or
going
whatever,
on,
they should be encouraged to go to therapy, and they're not. But we are.
Right. Well, and this is the thing is that I think that some people may be, right? But if it's something that was passed down, maybe, meaning if it was a belief system that was passed down from their environment, right? Then it doesn't matter who they're around. Meaning like they could be around lots of people in their life today who were like, go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. But their belief system is, fuck that, I'm not fucking doing that. Because it came from all the way over here and it's so deeply, engraved or whatever in their mind,
Man,
so
that stuff's crazy. The embeddedness from generation to generation. It's almost like there's parts of it even embedded like in your DNA. Like you don't even know that you're doing certain things or whatever. And breaking away from that is a process, and you have to want to do it and be aware of it. Right? Would you say that?
You have to want to
be aware of like, okay, I'm going to go see a therapist because I need to break away from whatever is like making me feel this way that is probably passed down from. I mean, would you have to understand that to even like take the first step?
No,
what would you
I don't
need
think you have to understand it that deeply. No.
What would you need? What would the average guy or just anybody, right, need to understand about themselves to like
seek help,
maybe take that first step?
So like I'm gonna make it really like for me personally, like just from me working with people, like even if you have like, if you guys can see that, it's very small.
Not everybody can see. People are listening.
Even if you have or like this much,
she's got an inch
willingness. Okay, if you have this much willingness and this much insight into yourself in any way, shape, or form, whether it be I just don't feel well or feel right, and I don't know what that is, but I don't like the feeling. Or, you know what, I guess I'll give it a try, or I thought about, even if it's that much, done. Like I think what happens though is that when people get into therapy, and this doesn't happen all the time, but it does sometimes happen, is they could be willing, let's say, to get in the door, which I'm fine with, even if it's like this much willingness, because at least you're in the door. But I don't think that everyone has enough insight or is really prepared or understands what's going to happen once they're in the door.
And then once they get in the door, it could be overwhelming.
Right. And so I've had a lot of, actually a lot of men, now that we're thinking about it, a lot of men that I've worked with head out, and never to be heard of ever
Mm.
again because it just too much. Now, I will say though, I mean, since we're focusing on men right now, I will say though, because I know how difficult it is for, I guess, like a man to really be able to like make themselves completely vulnerable,
Mm.
just because see it like all the time. The vulnerability I have seen in my years and years in this profession of working with men, oh my God. I mean, like, it is like, it's amazing. It really is. It's amazing shit because when they do get to that point,
Mm.
oh my God, it's like floodgates are open and now we're going hard. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right,
now
right,
nothing can stop you now, like, it's great.
right. It's it's an amazing process. I really wish that I could like inject like the process that I went through into somebody else, and like because it was I didn't necessarily go to it was a few different steps that kind of like started opening my thoughts to like what's going on,
Hmm.
but essentially I did it on my own, and I'm not, and looking back I don't know how, really I do know how, but it was a series of events and steps and things that happened. But I'm trying to think of like the moment where I was just like, okay, I need to change things. Well, for me, it was when I realized that I had picked up things like from my dad that I didn't like about myself, right? But I don't know how I came to that conclusion. So, anyways, what I'm trying to say is like, it would be nice if there was like some method that you could give to everybody and they could do it on their own time. Maybe like some sort of, I'm sure there is like a form to fill out, and you get like answers that come out at the end, but like of like what is there something going on with you? Are you not aware enough about yourself? Um Anyways, I don't know. I'm just kind of going
Well,
on a rant with that,
yeah,
but
no, no,
like
no. I think also what happens, another thing that I want to touch on too, I think also what happens is, because I see this with people who I'm working with now, and have worked with, is that I could have someone who's extremely insightful, extremely,
hmm,
has the ability to connect dots and connect them very easily, is very, very willing to like go through that whole entire process, right? Suffer from severe major depression, okay, and severe anxiety. Has taken medication their whole life, has been in therapy basically their whole life, and unfortunately still just doesn't
mm,
feel better, And so those are the individuals too who also obviously are really concerning because after a while, like after a while, I think the thought process that sets in is a tremendous amount of hopelessness, like because you're like, because at that point, you've been trying. It's not like you're not trying, at that point, you're like, I've been in therapy, I'm working on my
mm.
stuff, I've tried every single medication, da 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 da, and yet I still feel the same. Like at that point, oh my God, like that the powerlessness, the hopelessness, the forget about it, nothing's going to get better thought process comes in hard.
It's interesting. I just as we're talking, I was thinking like, man, just like culture, just society in general, everybody has something, right? And and some obviously more than others, issues passed down through culture, generations of whatever. Um, and it's almost like we're all kind of like living in this illusion almost, right? Not individually, but as we talk to somebody else. Like say I have some stuff that like, I shoved down years ago, don't want to talk about it. I kind of know what it is, don't really care. I just want to move on about my life, right? So that leads me to present myself in a certain way, right? to whoever I meet, right? But it's not the real me, right? Would you agree?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not like the
It's
most authentic
it's
version
not
of
the
you, right?
real, yeah, it's not the most authentic me because I don't even know me because I refuse to go in and look into that,
Yeah.
or I just don't know how to go in and look at it, or I don't know the first step, or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
I'm presenting to the outside world this almost like false identity, not as like a deceptive thing or trying to like fuck anybody over or trick anybody. It's just who I believe that this is all I know. This is how I am. Would you say that like a lot of people are doing that? I would say almost everybody is doing it at a certain extent.
On
Am
a
I correct?
certain level, yeah. I mean,
Right?
there's different, the intensity, I guess,
Right,
kind
right,
of
right.
varies, but yeah, absolutely.
Right. So then we are, as society, as we interact with each other throughout the world or wherever, we're not really seeing each other for who we really are, right? Which could also be our just problem in culture in general, right? Because there's all these like kind of hidden trapdoors with every kind of communication. It's like
Hmm.
the way we have to be so precise about saying things or we don't trust each other. Da, 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 da. But imagine a world, this is a utopia world, where everybody just knew everything, knew their lineage of where these problems came from, understood themselves, and then presented themselves as the person that they are, who they know they are, who they want people to know they are, and we all interacted that way. That would be a whole different world.
Well,
Wouldn't that be
yeah, I mean,
amazing? And that's all that I feel like we can get there. And I feel like right now we're in the first steps. We may not see this in our lifetime, most likely not, but maybe our kids' lifetimes as things get better. Because even in your lifetime right now, you've probably seen in your career the trend of, like you said, more men are coming to see you, more minorities coming to see you. So there's this like trend upwards of people wanting to understand themselves. I'm doing like numerology, there's astrology, there's all these different methods of figuring things out about yourself that are kind of, I feel like there's an undertow of a rise of like, oh, self-awareness, right? And imagine if we're at the beginning stages of the world getting to
of
know
something
to
really
know
amazing.
itself.
Yeah, I mean, right when you were talking about that, I think what I like saw in my head because I was trying to visualize it was like one of those like futuristic movies where
Mm.
like because I could see someone making a movie of this where
Mm.
like every time you go and you meet someone, like instantly you're able some like screen pops up and
Yeah,
you're
you
able
already
to
know.
see like
Mind reading,
like all of
basically.
their
Yeah.
stuff that basically they have going on, and then you're able to basically kind of just go in it knowing that like and all that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I saw.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, and everyone had that.
Yeah. But it's scary for people right now
But
because
this is
you know
why
why that's
this is
scary, by the way? Is because they're not authentic with themselves.
this is why though. Um, this is why the main like the top besides like mental health stuff, but as a society, I think this is why leading with love and support and kindness is key,
Mm.
because no matter who you are, especially if you're out there doing things that maybe other people could deem as like inappropriate, maybe you're hurting other people, whatever it may be, or unhealthy, there's a reason for all of that.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I bring up R. Kelly just because he's like, everyone knows that situation, and not saying that that's okay in any way, shape, or form, but like now that everything came out about his childhood and his life, I mean, it makes so much sense to me, like
Right.
why, unfortunately, that was going on, What I wish
Right.
would have happened was, along with his time in jail, he has some, I don't know, like therapy actually addressing the core stuff as to why he
Yeah.
even thought that doing those things was something that,
But if you
so
if a long time ago when he was a kid or
Right,
teenager,
when
they
he
had
was a
started
kid,
talking
or
about that,
people were
or
talking about it,
right, right,
right? Or
right.
at
Just
least, but oh my God, imagine that, like to be. I'm just gonna set the stage because to be a black boy, that was sexually abused, molested by. I don't know who he was molested by, but I know he was, and just the culture that I'm sure he was a part of. Like, who the hell's talking about that shit? Like, like who's like,
right, right.
oh, come have a conversation. Not the way that he described his upbringing and the way that I've heard other people in his life describe it, I don't think that was happening. So, right, like there needs to be that going on. And
Right.
if that was going on from the jump, then I think, not to say that it would prevent suicide, right? Or these situations from happening, because unfortunately they happen.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a really great, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, it
like,
would mitigate it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like the key is like for parents, I guess, is like where it if you have kids or if you're going to have kids, it's probably best to really dive deep in yourself and understand yourself very, very well, the best of your abilities, right? And then you have a kid, and then you teach that kid to understand themselves from the jump, right? Early on. Communicate, lots of communication, express yourself, cry, be happy, tell us what's going on. We'll tell you, everything is open and like very available, and then you're kind of helping that potential like utopia world happen, I think. Um, but and I understand it too as a parent. Like, your kids are like, why, huh? Asking all these questions, stressing you out, like annoying or whatever the fuck it is. But like, I mean, if you really care about what you're trying, about anything that we're talking about and the potential for this like utopia world down the road, it all begins with you, right? Understanding yourself. So I think the more that people just understand themselves, like to the core, and not even just understanding themselves, understanding their parents and understanding their parents' parents, because then you can say like you don't get along with your mother, right, or something like that, right, and you're just like, she's fucking annoying, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you even had this kind of experience with her, right? And it was probably not until you understood how your mom was raised, where you could give her a little bit more compassion
Oh,
to the
yeah.
situation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Before I was just kind of like, I have no fucking compassion. But
Right.
now, like, yeah, now I'm like, well, now the compassion doesn't forgive certain things meaning not forgive, but like the compassion doesn't completely make me go, oh, okay, that's okay that
Yeah,
she
yeah,
did that,
no, no, no. But
But,
understanding it though.
yeah, but I'm able to kind of be like she's not purposefully doing these things to hurt me.
Right.
You
And
know?
then what's going on with your mom right now too is she's becoming aware of how she was raised, and she's looking
Right,
back
right, yeah.
about how her mom was raised
Yeah.
and why she treated her like that. And it's this thing that's been passed down from generation to generation because they're not thinking about themselves and how they're affecting people. Like, I think all the fucking time about how like whatever things have been dumped on me can affect my daughter all the time. And I'm like, and it's even things that I maybe think are like good things about myself, like how I'm like organized, and that is maybe
Well,
it's too much, and that's
I
not
always
good,
come
right?
at you though with the other angle of it, which you don't see. Like I'm like, well, that could actually really like be like really
Right.
negative. I think also, man, the mental health piece for me, I think is even more challenging because what I've noticed is ever since having a kid and being a therapist, I think I'm like even more so in my head. I'm like, oh God, just like because I hear too many things, and I hear about the suicide, I hear about the suicide attempts, I hear about the thoughts, I hear about this, I hear about that, and in my mind, when I look at my daughter, I'm just like, I have to do everything I can possible to make sure that this doesn't happen in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
Although I know that I can't control it, like a lot of it really just can't be controlled. but I want to do everything I can. But I think I have to find a balance because I think I'm so fearful of something like that happening because I hear all the stories that I'm even more like, okay, let's throw her in therapy now. But I had a patient actually who's, I think I told you this, I had a patient whose parent, his father is is a clinical
Yeah,
psychologist,
they said that.
right? And his stepmom is a licensed marriage family therapist. So he was raised just with like therapy all the time in the
Too
house, and he
much.
was in therapy ever since he was like 4 on.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, I was just like, "Hey man, like how is that? Like, because I have a daughter, da da da." And he was like, "One thing I will say is, don't make them go." It's like, I never wanted to be there when I was a kid. Never wanted to be
Yeah.
there. I never wanted to be there. And because of that, I never got anything out of it. I was probably even more resentful. I had some like really bad experiences that just then formed his belief of, therapy, which he broke out of. But, like, so I have to learn how to,
Yeah, I mean, well, then you're really getting to like down to like the real nitty gritty, right? Where your child in they are a their own independent person, right? There are things about that kid that are not you and me, right?
right, right.
That need to be fed and nourished and allowed to express in whatever way that's going to be
Yeah.
expressed. What I think, honestly, the older she gets and then the more parenting skills or time we put in on it, it's like we really just need to focus in on ourselves. The more we adjust ourselves, fix ourselves, become more aware of our little things and where they come from and whatever. She's seeing this every single day, all the time, whatever it is, whatever freaking thing that I do that's like she could pick her some OCD thing or whatever. She's picking up on that. So if I am more able to understand why I do these things and maybe tweak them a little bit or adjust or just change the energy within it. That's it. That's all you have to do because she's just there
Well,
seeing
it's
it
still
all
not
the
gonna,
time.
right, but it still won't control the actual outcome, like these are
Well,
like
yeah.
preventative things that we can do, but as she gets older, anything could happen that's out of our control,
Right.
that can
And
create
that's
a lot of these mental
and I
health.
also the I think the more you realize that is the truth and it's a fact and it is what it is, like the sooner you are okay with like at some point we're going to release this kid into the wild and there is
I'm
nothing
so scared
that
right
we
now.
can do about it after that.
It makes me nervous.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel as long as I do my best work, meaning not telling her what to do or how to do it or whatever, more about my work on myself and understanding myself, that's going to help her down the road.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
No,
But
I get what you're saying.
I think where some parents go kind of sideways with this is where they'll get themselves to a point where they feel like comfortable. I've done a lot of work on myself, but they haven't done the deep, like, I don't know, shroom dive or like the one thing that's like stuck in the back where their mom did something to or whatever the hell it is and they act a certain way. They'll just get it to a certain point for the kid, right? And that doesn't mean that the kid's not picking up on that shit. They don't know what it is. They just they sense that there's other tension going on within you, right? And then they pick up that tension and it forms in whatever shape it's going to form in them, right? And then they're going to go to therapy when they're 30 and have to come back, look at what mom was doing, then go back and look what mom's mom was doing to her and do that whole rigmarole, right? So if we want to stop that, we fucking get it all out now.
I mean, honestly, it's so as you were saying that though in my head, I'm like, And I'll explain why I thought this, but in my head I was like, if they're lucky, that'll happen. And the reason why I said that is because I'm also
Go to
thinking
therapy when
about,
they're 30? Is that
yeah,
what you're saying? Yeah.
because what I'm also thinking about are the many, 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 many situations out there from individuals who either don't have good insurance because insurance is too fucking expensive.
Hmm.
So therefore, they don't have good insurance to actually pay for them to go to therapy. Can't come out of pocket because, well, therapy's expensive.
Right.
Or the individuals who, let's say, because I've had these situations, I'm working with, right? I've worked with them for, let's say, years, They've tried every medication, like I said,
Hmm.
And in my mind, I'm like, oh, man, I would love for them to do like EMDR, or I would love for them to do the ketamine, or I would love for them to do, and that's great. There's suggestions made, but insurance doesn't pay for those things, and to come out of pocket with that is fucking expensive.
Mm.
Let alone the fucking psychedelic therapy. That's like, forget it. That's all out of pocket.
Right.
You
So,
know, so
so there's a
then,
lot of people that
so
don't
then what
get it.
ends up happening, because I have cases like this right now that are frustrating me in terms of like, I just wish that I can like do more, but then what ends up happening is that then they literally feel like they are just stuck because they can't, because of financial situations, you can't really, get something or utilize something that can actually really, really, not saying it's going to change your whole entire life, right? But at least can be like really beneficial, Talk therapy
Mm.
can only take you but so far, Medication can only take you also but so far. The two combined, great, but not everybody's, some people are medication resistant, there is depression resistant, like resistance, where like people who have major depressive disorder go on meds and they're just not, nothing works, like, and in all honesty, if you have severe depression and severe anxiety, and I'm talking like clinical, like major depressive disorder, MDD, like, I mean, there's just therapy alone. That's going to be a tough one, So it
Maybe,
just sucks because there's so many treatments out there that aren't covered.
well, I mean, yes. I'm just talking about just in general of like creating. See, this is where we differ a little bit. You focus in on the individual, which is good, and you need to. And when I'm telling a story like that, my mind is like I'm telling the story of like me getting myself right, so my kid doesn't have to go to therapy when
Yeah, but it's
she's
not just
30,
about
right?
you.
But it's not. It's not. Well, it is and it isn't.
Right now, it's
But
that I'm talking in general about
but
like
yeah,
tons of
yeah.
people. So I'm trying
So
to
then,
hit lots of people's maybe different situations out there.
right. I'm just saying, like in the what I'm trying to put out there on this podcast and whatever at this moment is like, um, maybe like there's like this. Maybe this is the purpose on Earth for all humans, right? Figure your shit out. Figure your shit out, right? And if you figure your shit out, if every individual on Earth
But it,
figured whatever their shit
but what
out,
I was just giving you are some reasons why people maybe won't be able to figure
no,
their shit
I
out.
understand. I
So it
understand.
can't just be this like figure your shit
No,
out, everyone.
no, I understand that, but I'm just saying, um, we as a society could put that at a high priority and push it out on TV shows and commercials and marketing and all
I
kinds of
think
other
it's getting.
stuff.
I think it's starting to be. It's definitely being talked about
It's
more.
what that's one, and that's why I was saying earlier, where I think we're at the very beginning
It's definitely
stages
being
of
talked
this,
about more.
and but would you agree that anything that I have within me that is a stressor or some sort of whatever level maybe my mind considers a trauma from a childhood thing or a passed down generational thing, and this can be different levels for all kinds of people, right? But whatever in my mind that is, if I supp- if I suppress that because I think it's not that big of a deal, right? And I'm doing that because I think that it's helping my kid by not knowing these bad things or shitty things that happen to me or whatever, by not just leaving it there because it doesn't need to be talked about or whatever it is, right? Would you agree that by me doing that, I am deliberately passing that on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation.
I mean, you're definitely, I don't know if you're deliberately doing it, but I mean, you're doing it.
Well, that's what's happening though. Am I correct? I mean,
Yeah,
there,
that's what definitely, I mean, there's
your
such thing
kid's
as
picking it up.
generational trauma.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Your kid's picking it
It gets
up no
passed
matter
and this
what.
and that, yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, I'll simplify this. Like what I was saying earlier. If you're a parent and you have these feelings or thoughts and you don't know what they are, or you're not exactly sure where they're coming from or whatever, but you just like, you know what, I'm just gonna put that aside because I got a kid to take care of and raise.
Which again, I think
Which is a lot of people.
which is a lot of people. I want to be clear though. I don't think that people are doing that with the thought of that it's not
No.
good.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanna
you're
be
right.
clear.
You're right. You're right.
People are doing that because they think in their minds that that actually is what they need to be doing for their kid.
You're right. I agree. That's the thought. That's the selfless idea of it, right? But what I'm trying to say right now is it is not. It is a
isn't.
thing
Oh,
that
it is, yeah.
is going to affect your kids. It is. It actually is. So whatever that thing is that you're just like, you know what, I have this anxiety, I have this whatever, and I'm putting it aside because I need to get it together today because I got to get this kid to school and he's got he's got dance class, whatever the fuck it is, and you're just putting it aside. By you doing that, whatever that is, your kid's gonna have it.
So let's be clear in terms of what you mean by have it.
It's going to
because that's
express
different
itself in
layers.
some way
Yeah.
through that kid's life.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear because
Okay.
have it makes it seem like,
Okay.
oh, they're gonna have us like
Like a disease or something, but
yeah.
yeah, but all right. So I hope I've made this like clear. So if you are a parent, you are shoving something down or putting it aside because
I think you've made this clear, Joe.
I have. Okay.
Yeah, but
because
that's why
because
I'm
we
trying
kind
to just come in because
I'm trying to make a clip is what I'm trying to
So-
make so we could put it.
I know, but you don't have to overtalk it. What you're doing basically is, or what you're saying is talking about generational trauma. Generational trauma is when, let's say,
Everybody has it though.
let's say I experienced something in my life or whatever that I never worked on. And so because of that, I had certain behaviors and certain thought processes, right? Those things then get obviously put into how I'm raising my child or whatever and stuff like that, right? And therefore then now they grow up and they take on bits and pieces of that when those things are unhealthy because they're coming from the trauma that so it's generational trauma. It's just like this like round and round cycle of like passing down unhealthy stuff from, let's say, traumatic situations. Like for people who, let's say, have been sexually abused and they have children. That's a big one, you know, especially if it hasn't been worked on.
I mean, that's a big one. Let's talk about like the minor ones that a lot of people will just have. Maybe not. I mean, but they might not be minor to them.
Yeah, nothing's,
Right.
Nothing's minor.
But
I
I
was
mean,
just saying sexual abuse because
a
that's just more of like it's just
yeah,
bam,
but that's
you know?
like, I mean, for most people, it's like that's like a traumatic. Everybody would significantly, everybody would.
Not everybody.
Not everybody would think that getting raped as a kid is a traumatic situation.
No.
Oh, maybe that person. That person wouldn't. They'd be like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal," right? But I mean, now because these things have been coming out over the years, if you watch something on TV and somebody said this person was raped as a child, across the board, people can recognize that as a traumatic situation.
Well, it speaks louder. Like
Right.
And it's like, whoa.
Well, but let's talk about the things that don't speak louder, right?
I guess getting yelled at when you were younger, or parents arguing in the house a lot.
How about that? How about this? Yeah, your parent was always just like, yeah, couldn't put up with any of your stuff basically. You would just be playing and maybe you'd be playing too loud and they'd be like, you gotta chill out, and they're always like just up on you about like something like because it was annoying to them or something like that, right? So that
Yeah, but there's a reason why it's annoying to them. So
This is
why
what I'm trying to
getting
get to.
No,
This is
but
what I'm trying to get to.
But this is why I'm leading to like the other stuff. Like again, like for example,
I'm trying to paint the picture
I know,
from a
but what
kid
you're
to the parent's parent.
I know you're trying to paint the picture, but there's no need to because what you're
No?
saying ends up basically with what I said, which is the bigger, louder thing. Meaning, there's always something that's triggering that annoyance that the parent
Oh, the bigger,
has.
louder
Like
thing came from a couple
came
generations
from
ago.
somewhere, yeah,
Oh,
or just
okay,
something
okay,
bigger
okay.
that happened. Like for example,
Right.
like I get annoyed when let's say when she brings all her stuff out of her playroom into the living room. It sounds minor, not minor.
But where does that stem from? Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Go through the story.
Oh, well, for me, one, that stems from I have obsessive compulsive thought process. I also have high levels of anxiety, and I also have this need for things to be like perfect or like look a certain way, which also came from just like a lot of my own stuff, which interesting enough.
But hold on. All right. Okay. Sorry.
In terms of what? Are you getting into like,
Well, I don't
want me to
know.
go like
I don't
deep
know if
into
you
my,
wanted to go into that. All right. Well, you can make up like a hypothetical.
I'm just trying to
if you
be
want.
like, yeah, I'm just trying to be vague, you know, like as like vague as possible right now, but like,
Okay.
how,
Do you want me to go into my thing?
dude, I'm just like, I mean, like, it went into that comes from my, I mean, you know, my
Because
mom.
like, listen,
You've seen my mom,
because
right?
we're bouncing around. I just want to go from me as a kid, my parent doing something to me that might have been very minute, but then I find out that their parent was doing something to them and their parents were really doing something to them, and how it is expressing itself as it gets passed down. That's what
Right.
I'm trying to like
But, or not
show
even parents, though. It could
through
just be something
words.
that happened to them in life that has nothing to do with their parents. It could
Well,
be some other,
right. I'm
other
talking about
event.
things that we have control about right now with our kids.
Okay.
This is what I'm talking about, right? Yes. A
Okay,
freaking,
so
you
your
can go out on the
dad
street and some
lying to
crazy shit.
you
Right.
your
Do you
whole
want me
entire
to, I
life
mean, do you want me to go through my thing?
as you
Or
were a child.
I'm just trying to like, because I think you may hear these things all the time because of the work that you do,
Right.
but the normal person, I don't think, thinks anything of this shit.
Well,
Would you agree?
I don't think that's true, but I think there's some level of like at least
There's some level, but
some
that's
level.
the level that gets
Not
jammed
all
down.
not all level.
But that's the level that they just say, I got to focus on my kids. We'll put that aside and I got to focus on my kids.
Okay, so go
Right?
ahead, take everyone through.
Because my thing is one of those things. I don't think my thing is like some like,
Big thing?
well, it is at some level and we'll get to it. Right?
Yeah.
I haven't gone through this process, but we'll
Go through it.
go ahead.
I actually kind of want to hear this.
Okay. So, like I was saying earlier, at some point, I discovered that, like, yeah, my father, we'll just leave it at, like, you know, my dad, he didn't purposefully lie, I don't think, but they held things back from the kids, like, oh, you know, we don't want them to know we smoke weed, or, you know, or just like,
Did your
you
dad
know,
ever tell you that he would pick you up from somewhere and never did?
no, not traumatic like that.
Okay.
No. This is what I'm saying. This is like a very normal situation, but
Okay.
to me,
They told you Santa Claus existed when
Santa
when
Claus
he didn't.
Santa Claus.
Okay.
There's a lie. Yeah, Santa Claus did not exist. But anyways, no, it was just like he was the type of person that just didn't want any, like, the people, his friends, his family, to like be like sad or anything. He just wanted everybody to be happy, and he, you know, just, you know, talked about the good times all the time.
Do you know why that is?
I don't know. We're gonna get through it right now.
Oh, I do already.
Okay, well, you'll probably be able to help me here. I discovered this, and then I started seeing it in myself as I got older, and I didn't like that about myself. So there was a point where I was like, I need to stop doing this.
Trying
Like,
to make everyone happy? Because you
no.
not as much as you used to, but you still have a piece of that.
No, yes, I do want to make people happy because I like especially family and
Right, which
stuff.
there's
But
nothing wrong with
I
that.
feel like I do it in like I'm not doing it in like a deceptive way where it's like there's really shitty things going on and I'm not telling anybody about it.
No, I don't think it has to be that way. Nothing's deceptive, but I do believe that as you're saying this example, when we first met and we first lived together, actually, I remember having several arguments just in terms of like me, let's say, being in a bad mood or just crying and feeling sad, and you trying to take me out of that feeling
Mm.
so
Yeah,
much
yeah, yeah,
because you wanted me to
yeah,
just be
yeah. You're right.
happy. And I remember being like, don't like take my
Yeah,
feeling away from
I
me.
think that was
Like
the
this is
last.
my feeling. Like
That
I'm
was the
allowed to feel
last.
that.
That was the last piece of
Yeah.
it, and I needed you to
Yeah.
tell me that, right? But prior to that, yeah, I would always try to like,
Like,
oh,
oh,
don't worry, you
someone's
don't
sad.
need to
Hold on, let's
cry.
take it
Yeah,
away.
you
Yeah.
know, let's go like have some fun or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and it stemmed out into other things where like I said with ex-girlfriends or whatever I would do something, but then I was like, well, she's not gonna know if I fucking do this thing, and it's not really affecting her, and it doesn't really matter, so I'll just tell her I did this thing. And but then somehow through the way she'd find out, and I'd be like, at the end of the day, it's not a big deal,
Well, you
right?
watched your dad live like that.
Right,
I
right.
mean,
But and it wasn't a big deal, but it was because they found out. Then I'm like, then I look like this like liar. Why are you even lying about these dumb things, right? So, anyways, so thank God sorted all that out. It took me a couple years, few years to figure all that shit out. And but if you go back now, or say I didn't figure that out, right? Then that's just being passed on, right? That take away
yeah, now you're
the
doing it for
person's
Soul. Now you're taking away her
right,
feelings and
right,
everybody
and then
else's
she
feelings. And then
doesn't
she
learn
thinks
how
that
to
that's okay. So
right,
she's like, oh, everyone, like, you're crying. Oh, come on, let's go do something fun. And it's
right.
like,
Then
so
she
now we're
doesn't
all
learn
just dismissing shit.
exactly,
Yes. Okay.
exactly,
Good.
and that's
That's,
that's a problem,
yep.
you know. So going back, and this might be for a lot of families, this particular thing, or something similar, where it's just once again culture generations, right? You got to think about our parents' parents. This is like they were born in like 1910 or something like that, right? And then their parents were born in like the 1800s, right? So what was going on in the world then? There was civil wars in the 1800s, like real shit was going on. People were fucking hunting for fucking food to survive, building their own houses in the woods or whatever in the 1800s, right? So we're only a couple generations removed from that mentality, right? They weren't thinking about any of this shit that we're talking about. Nothing. They were surviving, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not blaming it on them. It just is what it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So my parents or my dad's parents, my grandfather, he was just like a really hard worker. He was a good guy for the most part. I think he did have some drinking issues at different parts of his life, but not to the point of like, physical harm of anybody or anything. Well, maybe not. I take that back. I think my dad and my uncle might have gotten hit with the belt a few times, but that was a cultural thing back then, right? But they're not expressing their feelings and thoughts. Maybe if you're lucky, you grew up in a family where your parents, the grandmother was caring and allowed for conversation. Who fucking knows, right? That's very rare though. Most of the time it's just
For
like,
those generations.
yeah, most of the time it was like dad goes to work, or we're talking about grandparents right now, went to work, and mom stayed home and just dealt with the kids the best that she could, just kind of wrangled them up, fucking cooked dinner.
Yeah.
There was no like conversation about like, oh, like, emotions and thoughts of like how you're feeling today and stuff like that. So we're in a different world now, and our kids are going to be in a different world, and their kids are going to be in a different world. So right now, I see myself as the grandparents or the great grandparents, right? How are my kids' kids going to look back on me and what I did to my kids that affected their mom, that freaking made them into some fucking person that does some stupid thing or whatever, right? So anyways, yeah, I don't think I ever really got to the source of really why my dad was like that. I think it was more about just, probably not being able to express himself in the ways that he wanted to.
No, go stupid.
And all right, do you know? Tell me. Let's talk about it. Because this is new news to me.
So I'm having some resistance, and I think the reason why I'm having some resistance is because one, it's not even your life I'm talking about right now. It's your father's life, and it's your father's like business and stuff that he hasn't. So it's like I just feel weird getting into it as clinically deep as I possibly can with the bits of information that I do know.
Okay, we'll talk about it off.
Do you know what I'm
offline.
saying? Like I just feel like out of like respect, it's just like
Yeah, that's good. But there are things there though.
Yeah.
There's definitely there. Like so you don't even know. You never even met. You met my
I
grandmother.
don't even know half of it. Right.
Right.
Like all I know is what I know, and I'm
that's
just
it.
putting shit together based on
but
that.
but
you like,
being a clinician
I
can
put,
see
yeah.
these things. Okay. Well, that's. But so it doesn't even. You don't even. If you're trying to like resolve these things in yourself, this is actually a good point, right? You clearly don't even need to know really where it stems from. It's nice to know because then you can kind of give your parents a little bit more compassion and you can understand their situation a little bit more instead of being like pissed off about it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
Yeah, the empathy level I think is probably a little higher once you do
right.
understand too.
But besides that, like if you really just want to like change and be a better person or you recognize things about yourself, you could just do it, right? Obviously, there's variables there of like mental blockages of like, for me, it wasn't, it was, there was probably times of hesitance of like wanting to like sort things out about myself. But for the most part, I kept pushing myself. For some reason in my life, truth became very important
Yeah.
in my early 30s, right?
Due to
To the point of
a
like,
lack thereof, yeah.
I have a tattoo on my back saying truth is God. Our podcast is called Keanvenient Truth. Like,
Our daughter won't know that Santa Claus is actually
yes, it's like, and I don't think,
a bit.
and listen, maybe this is the thing where my great grandkids look back and Grandpa told us the truth too much, and that's why I'm blank. What could that be? I don't know.
I don't know what to fill in the blank about, but I mean, again, it's one of those things that.
Can you really?
This is why I'm saying. This is why it's like mental health and just how the brain is and how people are. It's so hard because it can either go one way or another way. It all depends on how someone's brain interprets the information or
Right.
behaviors that they're seeing. I mean, it's like I have no idea what that could be. And then it also depends on just that kid or just that person specifically. And, in terms of maybe what they need more of or less of or this or that. And, like I'm truthful with everyone who I speak to, whether it be outside or inside of the office. But there's also maybe some people out there where I have to let them figure out the truth because it's a part of their process. And I know that. So sometimes they'll ask me, they'll be like, well, I don't know why, and I'll be like, really? And they'll be like, do you know? And I'm like, yeah, I fucking know, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you because it's a part of your fucking process. Like, let's figure it out. So I'll guide them to make the connection on their own versus tell them.
That's super helpful. All right.
Wait,
yeah.
a lot. Some people need that versus just... And it helps them with someone's like, confidence level and like their accomplishment and, stuff like that versus me just sitting there going, well, this is why.
Yeah.
Now, some people need it like that and some people don't. So it's just very, but I do want to end on this note because we do have to get going. So anyway, wrapping back around, I do just want to put out there again for anyone who's having any issues in any way, shape, or form, please look into those resources that I had mentioned about in the beginning of the podcast. Again, there's NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness. There's SAMHSA, SAMHSA, which is like Substance Abuse Mental Health Alliance or something like that. Sorry, I'm jabbing it up. But there's also, once you go to those websites, you can also find like more resources. If you are part of the LGBTQ population, there are pride organizations, right? So there's different organizations around the country, right? Where you can go there, go to your Pride Center, local Pride Center, and they'll have tons of resources for you. A lot of them have also groups, and they have individual therapy that comes out of those Pride Centers as well, so that's a good place to also go. Go online, psychologytoday.com if you can find a therapist, zencare.org, I think, if you can find a therapist. If you're in the local area, which is just like Rhode Island area, Rhode Island or Florida, because that's kind of what I can do something with in those two. And you are just looking for someone, and you just need, even if it's someone to just like talk to for a session. I don't really care. Like, I don't care if it's like a one-time thing or I just would much rather have someone reach out than not. You know what I'm saying?
What else is never really mentioned when talking about this type of stuff for places to go to.
Hold on, I'm not done yet. So
sorry.
So you can also, if you needed to, you can contact me through Keanvenient Truth, through Instagram. You can message me, and I don't know, if I could help in any way, then I definitely will try and make sure I do.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done. But yeah, no, a thing, like alternatives to all that stuff that like I think are not offered as helpful, or not helpful, but like supportive in mental health or whatever, would be like things like through meditation you could.
Well, that's a coping skill. I'm talking about for people right now who have like mental illness and
Okay.
who like are battling with like severe depression or this
All right,
or
but
that.
what about the other people that aren't
Those
as
are-
severe
well,
and just trying to like work things out with themselves?
they can still work things out and use some of the, what you're talking about right now are coping skills. Meditation's a coping skill. I'm just
Okay.
talking about like actual like.
What about like numerology?
Okay, right. So the holistic platforms, right? So
Right.
you can go see a numerologist if you wanted to stay holistic. Who else
Even
is in that?
astrology, I guess, is kind of in that
Astrology.
world.
Who else falls in that?
Then, I mean, this is what I'm saying. So yes, that is a coping mechanism of meditation, right? But through meditation, you can almost like you connect to this spiritual being that like you may understand things about yourself just by being quiet within yourself that you may understand going through talk therapy maybe. But maybe you just create this regimen of like, and most of the time, I mean, it can be anything. It could be an extreme situation or not an extreme. I know these are not things that you would offer for like, all right, we're going to resolve this right like today.
Well,
but
nothing's
like,
a resolve today. Nothing's a quick fix. I think that, no, yes, I do think that what you're saying, yes, meditation's something to use. I think, again, just like many things, if someone even just has anxiety, right? Good old fashioned anxiety, let's say, meditating could be pretty difficult. And so depending on how, stimulated your brain is, it's not so easy just to kind of sit there and write. So you might want to reach out to someone to maybe kind of help you get into meditation. So whether it be a meditation class or something of that sort, and then they can guide you through the process. Absolutely.
Or even like yoga.
Right.
Or
yeah.
I had another one that I was thinking about. Damn it. The meditation, yoga. I don't know. Anyways, yes, there's other alternatives.
Shamans. Oh my God, shamans are actually really amazing to work with as well.
Yeah, so I was gonna say like
in terms of like inner child work and getting into stuff.
What about like psychedelics and stuff too?
Well,
like on their own, technically you could.
I wouldn't. Me. I'm not suggesting that anyone do that on their
Right.
own.
It's better to do it with a therapist for sure, I think.
No, I would say if you're going to do it and you feel like it's something that you want to do, I would say definitely look into seeking a therapist who actually can
Mm.
do psychedelic assisted therapy versus do it on your own.
Yes. Agreed.
That's like clear. That's a clear statement from me.
Agreed. I
All right.
just think that there's other alternatives though that can get you to the point of like being more aware of yourself and pinpoint connecting the dots and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, if you have more traumatic things, it's a lot probably deeper. Possibly, it could be. I mean, even my thing is actually probably deeper because it's less connected to the original source of like where it all stems from. You know what I'm saying? Like
Your
it,
thing is your thing is really deep. But the fact that you don't, I mean, I still think that you don't. Yeah, I'm not sure how serious you see your like situation as in terms of like your environment and growing up, like because you and your sister both talk about it like so like yeah, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah. And I'm like,
Once again,
mm,
I've only gone to minimal therapy, talk therapy about this. I don't know. Well, not necessarily. I went through a numerologist every week for a year, and for 2 hours every single week for a year. We talked about things all the time. But I think a therapist or clinician would have kind of
oh, they're gonna
guided me
dive
a
down a
little
whole
bit
other yeah,
more, you know?
absolutely. All
So
right,
yeah.
Victor, talk
Anyways,
to me.
my thing was like, yeah, I did a lot of it on my own. It could be done. Blah 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 blah. You can go to alternative methods or everything that you're talking about, and just better yourself the best you can.
Um, okay, thanks everyone for listening. Happy holidays, happy New Year. If we don't talk to you,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have one before New Year's. But bye.